food is shocking. Come on, guys, it's called the double standard for a reason. You can't have it both ways.
Here's how I make the perfect sandwich
For food poisoning.
for my cheating husband.
Oh, so you actually are trying to finish him off. Right, that changes the game. We didn't just have to explode the world. If I'd known that from the start, we could have avoided that.
I started by making some sauce. I mixed some mayonnaise
I started by
and mustard
making some
and honey.
sauce. Why is she dragging her words on for like 3 business days? I feel like I'm aging just listening to what she's saying.
Then I put that all over his bread, and
You see, from that angle, I see no problems. But when you actually turn it over, it's moldy as hell.
I layered the bottom with tomatoes, so every bite was perfect.
I think you should be layering the bottom with an antidote, quite frankly, because he's not going to survive this one.
And then, of course, I salted the tomatoes.
No way she's actually seasoned it.
I added some cheddar cheese, and
Do you guys realise that I've been editing the pauses out of this because it's taking so long?
he mentioned that he was going to have a busy day at work, so he needed a hearty lunch.
Alright, we can stop with the ham now.
So I added extra ham, of course, and
You weren't lying about the extra ham. Jesus, it's like half a pig on that sandwich now.
then I added pepper to the sandwich and romaine lettuce, of course.
I don't really care what you put on this sandwich anymore, like it's mouldy. You know, what am I...
And after that, I closed up his sandwich and put it onto some wax paper.
You could place it on top of the Mona Lisa for all I care.
Then I wrapped it in wax paper so it stays nice and fresh.
Fresh? That sandwich was fresh 2 weeks ago. It's not fresh anymore. I don't think you have to worry about that now.
And even though he's a cheater, I like to spoil him, so I cut it down the middle.
Yeah, I can see why he cheated. No, I'm joking. I don't condone cheat.
Here's how I make the perfect sandwich.
For food poisoning.
If you ever see this in your McDonald's sandwich, for the love of God, run. From Kentucky Fried Towels to bullet-infested hot dogs, and even a human tooth-laden Chinese meal, as well as whatever the heck this stuff is. Let's check out some insane true stories with a clear message. If you notice any of this in your food, throw it away immediately. The year was 2019, and Stephanie McDonough had just ordered delivery from her local Chinese spot in Solihull, England. Little did she know, however, that after just a few mouthfuls, she'd be spitting out a tooth. And, spoiler alert, it wasn't her own. Yep, as completely unbelievable as it sounds, Stephanie found a genuine whole human tooth amongst her food. And while I'm sure we can all agree that this was very clearly a human tooth, the restaurant denied any negligence and instead assured Stephanie that this was perhaps part of the onion. Show of hands, please, for anyone who thinks this right here is a freaking onion. Regardless of the blatant denial, the secret ingredient was tested and, would you believe it, proven to be a human tooth. Fortunately, the restaurant was duly investigated and authorities looked into how exactly a tooth made its way out of someone's mouth and into Stephanie's. The outcome, however, remains a chilling mystery with no publicly reported solution. Makes you wonder, was the meat human too?
Stats show the USA produces around 6.4 billion pounds of frozen dessert per year. And while as a nation it seems we can't keep our fingers off these delicious treats, certain people can't keep their fingers out of them. Picture this. The year is 2005, and North Carolina resident Clarence Stowers stops by a Kohl's frozen custard drive-thru. As he returns home and tucks into his frozen custard, he notices a lump in it. However, initially assuming it to be candy, he continues the feast. Confused and unable to put his finger on the candy's flavor or texture, he spits it out and investigates. It wasn't long before a shriek escaped his body, and he discovered what appeared to be a freshly severed human finger in his dessert. But it wasn't just Clarence having a tough day. How about the guy who the finger belonged to? Well, that was a 23-year-old Kohl's employee, Brandon Pfizer. As he tried to catch a falling bucket of custard, his hand got caught in the machine that beats the custard mix, where his index finger was swiftly trimmed at the first knuckle. Amidst the chaos, Clarence rolled up at the drive-thru window where an unsuspecting employee served up a fresh scoop of human flesh. Reports claim that Clarence took legal action against the frozen dessert joint and kept Brandon's finger in his freezer as legal evidence. The outcome remains unknown, though I sincerely hope he eventually returned Brandon's finger.
However whimsical Pixar's Ratatouille might seem, I think we can all agree that finding a rat in the kitchen is never a pleasant encounter. Something this next guy knows all too well. It was 2010, and the man, who remains anonymous, was working as a cook in a kitchen. Opening up an industrial-sized can of baked beans, he soon found himself exhuming the body of a dead rat. There it lay, stewing in the tomato sauce in its entirety. Ugh. I'd need some therapy after discovering that. But how on earth did the rat end up there? Well, most likely it either climbed or fell into the can or cooking vat at the factory before being trapped alive in its tomb of beans. Either that or Skinner from Ratatouille finally got his revenge on Remy. Not particularly family-friendly. Jokes aside, although the manufacturer of the limited edition rat flavor beans remained anonymous, other baked bean brands, such as Heinz, came forward to claim their own innocence. But unfortunately, by their very nature, food factories can commonly attract numerous pests, such as rats, mice, cockroaches, and flies. And with rats evidently being present in this factory, who knows what horrors might have contaminated other cans of beans, such as fur or even urine and droppings. Just when you thought beans on toast couldn't be any more horrifying. Now, if you're anything like me, then your appetite has certainly been curbed after hearing that last story. However, I'm afraid the rat tales only continue. Back in 2023, a customer at Australian grocery chain Kohl's quite literally got more than he bargained for when he cracked open a can of the store's own brand chickpeas and found, well, this. What you're seeing could only be described as some kind of miniature, undeveloped, or badly mutated baby rat. Extra protein and bubonic plague. When questioned, Coles expressed their concern, putting it on the record that their suppliers apparently take great care when processing products. Yeah, that's totally evident. Yet, in return for being subjected to the trauma of a fetal rat in his chickpeas, the customer received no tokens of goodwill, but merely an apology. But a miniature rat is small fry in comparison to this next gruesome tale. Posted to Reddit, one unlucky chip muncher popped open a bag of Hers brand potato chips and discovered something rather unsavory, to say the least. Lying among her chips, all dusted up in seasoning, was a very furry, very dead mouse. There's simply no limit to the way I would scream and cry if I found this. And yet, despite this trauma-inducing discovery, she was allegedly told by the manufacturer that she was overreacting, and it was merely a burnt chip. Burnt chip? Overreacting? I should stop shouting! I may be overreacting now! Sorry about that. Anyway, given my indulgent potato chip habit, seeing this could actually be great for my diet. Maybe not so great for the mouse, though.
In 2020, British mom Laura Arbour bought her 6-year-old daughter some chicken McNuggets. It seemed to be a happy meal. That was until she began choking. As Laura induced vomiting in her daughter, she was shocked to see specks of blue in what came out. It soon became apparent that, alarmingly, a blue face mask had been baked into the nugget. Check out what happened when Laura dissected the nugget.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
Talk about a sign of the times, right? After returning to the restaurant, Laura claims she didn't even receive an apology, but she was more concerned about whether they were going to continue serving their clearly contaminated stock. Shockingly, they did. But hey, it was 2020. It was probably a fun COVID edition of their Happy Meal. The origin of this masked nugget remains a mystery, though it's likely to have fallen off one of the factory workers during the meat grinding or nugget cutting process.
Okay, riddle me this. A woman has a bullet in her stomach, but no wound. How? Well, it's simple really. She swallowed it. The question is, though, how and why would a person swallow a bullet? Way back in 2004, an Irvine woman, Olivia Chains, was feeling a little hungry, so stopped off at her local Costco to grab a bite to eat. As she got munching on her seemingly delicious hot dog, she soon encountered something very hard. Alarmed, Olivia inspected her hot dog and, to her bewilderment, discovered an actual bullet inside of the sausage meat. Somehow, in a puzzling turn of events, 2 9mm round bullet tips found their way into a hot dog sausage, and worst of all, Olivia unknowingly swallowed one of them. Now, granted, a bullet with its cartridge would be a seriously hard pill to swallow, but even with just the tips, Olivia suffered severe abdominal pains as a result. But rather than the surgical removal of the bullet, doctors insisted that it was best left to, naturally exit the body, if you will. Bizarrely, while the store's entire stock of wieners was thoroughly investigated for contaminants, nothing else was found. Maybe Olivia was the winner of some weird prize competition of finding the special bullet-contaminated hot dog. Okay, bullets might not be the best prize, but a phone wouldn't be too bad, right? Well, back in 2009, Wisconsin local Emma Schweiger was completely mystified when she popped open a packet of potato chips and found a phone. Of course, by 2009 standards, finding a Nokia brick wasn't meme-worthy like it is today, but probably felt more like a jackpot. The mobile was found in a pack of Aldi's Clancy's brand chips, though as to how it got there remains a mystery. And with the phone completely broken, there was no way of tracing it back to its owner. I'm sure if it had been found by the bullet hot dog woman, she would have probably accidentally swallowed it. Speaking of eating bricks, and not of the Nokia variety, did you know that you could actually be consuming bricks without even knowing? Allow me to explain. You see, among less reputable retailers around the world, there's a long-standing history of spice adulteration, dating back thousands of years. whereby spices are bulked up with foreign ingredients to reduce cost. For example, garlic powder is occasionally cut with white pepper. Black pepper has been found to be cut with papaya seeds. Turmeric has been found containing dried chalk. And one common adulterant in paprika is none other than brick dust. It's difficult to accurately state just how prevalent this is, but a 2016 study that examined multiple common paprika powders on the spectroscopic level, aka identifying compounds based on how light passes through powder, found that they tested positive for relatively high concentrations of brick dust, the highest amount being 14% of the overall mixture, which is insane. This kind of thing is most common in super cheap brands you don't typically see in reputable supermarkets. And while this might not cause you harm, it's still absolutely not what you're paying for. And for people with severe allergies, hidden, fraudulent ingredients like this can indeed pose serious risk. So beware that paprika you're seasoning your food with may be better suited for building a house.
In 2015, British mom Zoe Butler found extraterrestrial life inside her can of tuna, or so it seemed. As she peeled open the can, a two-eyed, limbless, squidgy creature gawped back at her. Stuart Hine, from London's Natural History Museum, identified the creature as a young Cemathoa exigua, not an alien, but a tongue-eating parasite. This creature enters fish through the gills and severs the blood vessels in its tongue, causing it to fall off. The Cemathoa attaches itself to the remaining stub and becomes the fish's new tongue, feeding on its blood and mouth mucus. While it's possible that this little guy had attached himself to a tuna fish's tongue, how he'd managed to make it into the can in one piece defied explanation. Princes who manufactured the tuna can think they may have an explanation, though. They think the creature may not be a tongue louse, but instead a megalopa, a small breed of crab that tuna prey on. The company suggests its legs were likely chopped off during the process, leaving the bug-eyed body behind. Whatever the reason for its presence, I'll be skipping tuna salad for a little while.
And speaking of eating the unthinkable, is the most metal eaten by a person over the course of their lifetime more or less than 10,000 pounds? Well, in order to find out, you'll have to buy our game. Nuh-uh. Only joking. The answer is more. Michael Lotito consumed an estimated 18,000 pounds of metal over the course of his life. But seriously, if you found that interesting, you'll love our trivia game. It's full of all of our most interesting facts. Click the link in the description or on screen now to order your copy today. Now back to the video. If you ask me, there's nothing quite as refreshing as some chilled coconut water on a hot summer's day. That said, however, after hearing our next victim's story, I'm not too sure I'll be in the mood for it anytime soon. In 2017, a New York mother, Barbara Klein, cracked open a bottle of Vita Coco coconut water, but after just one gulp, immediately knew something was seriously wrong. In her own words, she swallowed a chunk of something, describing it as being thick, syrupy, and disgusting. Ugh, really having a hard time continuing to read here, folks. Certain that something sinister was afoot, Barbara popped the hood, only to be confronted by a huge, gloopy blob of mold, or as she put it, an octopus-looking thing. I can't imagine there are too many things to find in your drink more terrifying than this. And, well, it's hardly surprising that Barbara immediately began to vomit. As a matter of fact, Barbara claims she is deathly allergic to mold, and as a result, reacted with extreme puking, diarrhea, and even asthma attacks. That coconut water doesn't seem quite so refreshing anymore, does it? But despite Barbara's apparent ailments, a spokesperson for Vita Coco was quoted as saying that while the company also believes the object is, in fact, mold, it highly doubts that it would pose a health risk. Tell me you're trying to avoid being sued without telling me you're trying to avoid being sued. They also insisted the customers are most likely at fault and improperly stored their product, something Barbara strongly declined. And turns out, this is far from being the first time that mold has been found in one of Vita Coco's products. Countless other unhappy customers have taken to the web to expose similar gloopy blobs of mold, suggesting there is something at fault with the manufacturing of this product. And I have to admit, hearing Barbara's story has left me thinking twice about whether I want to risk drinking Vita Coco again. Then again, maybe I should. And then if I find mold, I could sue them for every penny possible. Come on, Papa wants some new Roblox skins.
From chips, fries, and mash to even generating electricity, there ain't much a potato can't do, which is exactly why you should be a little worried. Autonomomicophobia isn't just a tongue twister, it's the fear of potatoes. And I know, scoff all you will, but it turns out potatoes can be pretty deadly. Yep, if you ever come across a potato with green spots on it, it's probably best to toss it in the trash. These green potatoes likely contain a poisonous chemical known as solanine. And while death by potato is more likely to happen if someone throws one at your head, these little suckers are capable of other damage, from inducing nausea, vomiting, and headaches to a lovely case of diarrhea. But why? Well, it's mainly to do with sun exposure. When exposed to sunlight, potatoes produce chlorophyll, a pigment which turns them green. And while this itself is completely harmless, it can also signal the presence of solanine. Being overexposed to sunlight will only increase this. So, proper storage is recommended, such as a cool, dark place. Sources suggest that physical damage, as well as notably high or low temperatures, can stimulate solanine production too. The solanine level are typically highest in the peel, but while peeling them can significantly reduce solanine content, studies suggest that much of the toxicity remains in the flesh, meaning a peeled potato may still cause illness, even when cooked. All this toxicity is purposeful though, as it protects the potato from insects and bacteria. Now, I'm no farmer, but maybe we could just put some sunscreen on them or something?
From golden, crispy McNuggets to mouth-watering Big Macs, McDonald's has been a fast food favorite since around the 50s. But I'm not sure we'd feel the same if more of us knew just exactly what goes on behind the counter. Take, for example, this next post shared on X by a now ex-McDonald's employee back in 2017. The stomach-churning image shows the rotten drip tray from a McDonald's ice cream machine in a Louisiana restaurant. Having gone viral for this repulsive image, McDonald's promptly responded with a statement claiming that it is, quote, committed to running great restaurants, and that this equipment doesn't come into contact with any food and is required to undergo regular cleaning. Define regular. As in, like, once every 12 years? After all, this isn't the first time a filthy McDonald's ice cream machine has been exposed. I think I may have figured out why the ice cream machine is always broken. Worst of all, though, the mold picture posting employee's expose on McDonald's resulted in him being fired. With what looks like years of rotten milk accumulated, it's pretty jarring to think that this cesspit of bacteria could be lurking in the shadows of your local McDonald's without you even knowing. And worst yet, what kind of pests might it even attract? Allow me to elaborate. In 2022, one unlucky diner, Georgia Poole from Birmingham in the UK, was tucking into her burger when she was greeted by a fly crawling on the bun. With alarm bells now ringing, Georgia inspected the burger and to her shock, discovered something truly sickening. Take a look for yourself. Yep. Brewing inside her burger were countless maggot eggs, presumably freshly laid by the suspect fly. Just imagine if Georgia hadn't inspected the burger and consumed the eggs. She could have suffered from bacterial poisoning, or depending on what exactly laid the eggs, perhaps even myiasis, whereby maggots burrow into human tissue. Which, yes, is as terrifying as it sounds and is certainly something you should not search for on Google Images. In response to this maggot meal, a McDonald's spokesperson assured that food safety and quality control is of utmost importance to the franchise, though having witnessed what we have so far, I'm not too convinced. I mean, this very same thing also happened to an Australian man in 2018. Hilariously, what was clearly a cluster of maggot eggs, he was assured by the store manager was actually just extra sesame seeds or a smaller onion. And I have to say, why doesn't the manager themselves take a nibble on that extra onion to prove it? Perhaps it was the same manager caught in another Australian restaurant drying a filthy, soggy mop head right under the fry heater. Needless to say, God knows what gruesome dirt and bacteria dripped off onto the fries below, which were being served to customers. I really have to say, I'm not loving it. Now, I don't mean to reinforce the negative stereotype regarding McDonald's employee intelligence, but, well, need I say more? When it comes to fast food, I'm afraid it isn't just McDonald's with dirty hands. No, the Burger King himself too, and arguably even worse if this next terrifying tale is anything to go by. Way back in 2001, Bronx woman Angelina Cruz chomped into her Burger King breakfast sandwich and suddenly felt something extremely sharp pierce her cheek on the inside. What was it, you ask? A piece of glass or plastic perhaps? Nope, a needle, as in a literal needle from a syringe inside Angelina's sandwich. Obviously, this left her with extreme concerns of having contracted some potentially deadly disease, such as HIV. From the publicized reports, Angelina's outcome remains unknown, as well as how the needle ended up in her sandwich and where it was from, though rightfully, she sought to sue the chain for $11 million. Now that's a big whopper. A similar, yet more extreme case took place in Honolulu, Hawaii, with a more decisive outcome in 2015. The fellow in that instance actually encountered